Think of a standard single-family home on, like, a quiet suburban street.
Okay, sure. I'm picturing it.
Now imagine 4 different families living inside it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's crowded.
Right. And the city desperately wants to make sure that house doesn't, catch fire. But the neighbors living next door, they just want the overflow of cars and garbage gone.
Yeah, which is a totally understandable clash.
Absolutely. So today, we are looking at a massive real-time experiment in urban regulation that is trying to bridge that exact gap. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
Glad to be here for this one. It's a heavy topic.
It really is. We are digging into Brampton's residential rental licensing program, which you will hear us call the RRL today.
Right, the RRL.
And we're pulling directly from local reporting on a recent April 28 town hall. We're examining 2 years of hard data, massive financial penalties, and a deeply divided community reacting to a policy that is basically shifting the ground right beneath their feet.
It's a fascinating situation.
It is. And whether you are a renter trying to understand the forces shaping your housing options, or, a homeowner watching the physical landscape of your street change overnight.
Or even just someone fascinated by how cities manage explosive growth.
Exactly. You're going to find immense value in this, because this exploration is going to completely change how you look at the house next door.
Yeah, because the tension here is, well, it's structural. We are looking at a municipality trying to force a wildly unpredictable, highly secretive housing market into a strict bureaucratic framework.
A strict framework that, let's be honest, nobody really likes dealing with.
Right, nobody likes bureaucracy. But the RRL is a municipal tool designed to capture a very specific, historically under-regulated segment of the housing market.
Okay, so break that down for us. What exactly does this mandate do?
So it mandates that property owners who rent out properties with 4 or fewer units must register with the city to obtain a special license.
4 or fewer. Why is that specific number important?
Well, the threshold is very deliberate. I mean, massive apartment towers already have strict corporate oversight.
Right. The property managers, regular fire inspections, all that stuff.
Exactly. But single-family homes that have been quietly carved up into, say, basement apartments or multiple rented rooms, they operate in this massive gray area.
Just totally under the radar.
Yeah, exactly, under the radar. So to get this new RRL license, those smaller landlords now have to submit to rigorous fire code inspections, as well as baseline health and safety checks.
Which sounds great on paper, but the timeline of how they rolled this out is critical to understanding the sheer scale of the chaos here.
Oh, absolutely. The rollout was intense.
Right, because the city didn't just drop this rule on every single neighborhood overnight. They started with a pilot program.
Yeah, back in January 2024.
Exactly, January 2024. And they restricted it to just wards 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7. They were basically testing the waters.
Trying to see if the system would even work before scaling it.
Right. But then, on January 1st, 2026, the City Council voted unanimously to expand the RRL citywide.
Which is a massive leap, and it's slated to run until the end of 2028.
And the data tied to this expansion, it is absolutely staggering. During the initial 2-year pilot phase across 2024 and 2025, the bylaw department reported issuing exactly 3,983 licenses.
Which is a decent chunk, right? Almost 4,000 units identified.
It is. But the moment that citywide expansion kicked off at the start of 2026, they received 13,381 new and renewal applications in a matter of months.
In just a few months. That's incredible volume.
Okay, let's unpack this. It is like someone walked over to a dam and just cranked open the floodgates. Are these 13,000 plus applications representing brand new rentals popping up overnight? Or is this massive jump actually the shadow market of existing unregulated rentals finally being forced out into the open because of the new rules?
That is the crucial question, right? And the answer is definitely the latter. Housing markets of this size simply do not organically construct or generate over 13,000 brand new rental units in a few months.
Yeah, that's literally impossible. Building takes way too much time.
Exactly. Economic realities dictate that construction is slow. So what this data reveals is the sudden unveiling of that shadow market.
The hidden density.
Right. For years, due to, rising mortgage rates, severe housing shortages, and a massive influx of newcomers needing affordable rooms, homeowners have been quietly subdividing their properties.
Just to make ends meet or to capitalize on the demand.
Exactly. But because this happened informally, the city had zero record of it. This massive spike in applications shows us the previously hidden density operating right under the radar in standard residential zones.
So the city was basically operating completely blind prior to this.
They were, and you cannot regulate a system that you cannot see.
That makes total sense.
Right. By attaching a mandatory license to the ability to legally rent a space, Brampton is forcing the invisible market into the light. This is the mechanical first step of municipal planning.
You have to know what's there before you can manage it.
Exactly. The city has to draw a realistic map of its own density before it can even attempt to enforce safety standards, or dispatch emergency services effectively, or plan for basic neighborhood infrastructure.
But, I mean, a flood of applications doesn't mean everyone is suddenly volunteering to play by the rules.
Oh, definitely not. There is always resistance.
We have to look at the enforcement mechanism dealing with the landlords who just ignore the application process entirely.
And the city's data gives us a clear look at that, too.
Yeah, between January 1st, 2024 and March 31st, 2026, the city reported issuing 893 penalty notices. And the financial toll of those notices is severe.
It really is.
We're talking a total of $695,550 in fines.
Wow. That is a serious chunk of change.
Right. And on top of that, the January 2026 citywide expansion brought steep increases to those fines. It established entirely new RRO-related offenses and forced the city to execute a second massive expansion of the bylaw department in just 2 years to keep up.
They essentially had to bulk up their enforcement arm twice just to handle the volume.
Here's where it gets really interesting. It feels like a high-stakes game of whack-a-mole.
Ha! Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like.
The city expands the bylaw department, the infractions pop up, they hit them with a fine, and then they have to expand the department again just to manage the next wave. Is handing out almost $700,000 in fines actually a sign of a successful working system, or is it a glaring red flag of rampant noncompliance?
It's tempting to see it as a red flag for sure, but looking purely at the dollar amount of the fines paints an incomplete picture.
How so?
Well, Councillor Dennis Keenan, who represents Wards 3 and 4, argued at the town hall that these escalating fines are deliberately engineered to change behavior.
Ah, so the sticker shock is the point.
Exactly. The financial penalty must be painful enough to make the cost of ignoring the law significantly higher than the cost of bringing a building up to code.
So they want to make compliance the cheaper option.
Right. However, the actual metric of success isn't the revenue generated from those penalties, it's the physical safety interventions.
The actual changes inside the houses.
Yes. The town hall data shows that 2,497 rental units were brought into full fire code and health and safety compliance.
Okay, that is a massive number.
It is. And additionally, another 1,077 additional rental units, or ARUs, were registered through proactive investigations and community complaints.
Just so we're clear, ARUs are legally defined secondary suites, right?
Yeah.
Like a self-contained basement apartment.
Yep, exactly.
So nearly 2,500 units are now verified as safe. If you are a listener thinking about the real-world impact, that means 2,500 places where the city has stepped in to ensure basic survival standards.
And the mechanics of that compliance are literally a matter of life and death.
What does that actually look like on the ground?
Well, when a unit is brought into fire code compliance, it means an inspector has physically verified that the drywall between units is thick enough to delay the spread of flames.
Oh, wow. They're checking structural details.
Exactly. They have checked for egress windows.
Right, windows that are big enough to climb out of.
Mechanically large enough for a person to escape through, yes, but also for a fully equipped firefighter with an oxygen tank to climb into.
That's a crucial detail.
It is. They've also ensured the electrical panels aren't perilously overloaded by, multiple space heaters, and that interconnected smoke alarms are actually functional.
Achieving that standard across nearly 2,500 units, that is the core intent of the policy.
Precisely. That is the win the city is aiming for.
Right, and it's easy to look at that spreadsheet, see the robust enforcement mechanism, see the thousands of safer units, and just take a victory lap.
And to be fair, the city is absolutely doing that.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Councillor Keenan claims success during the town hall, citing that he is hearing from community members about young families moving back into single-family homes that had previously been operating as illegal rooming houses.
Right. The implication being that the heavy hand of the bylaw department is actively healing the neighborhood.
Yes. But data on a spreadsheet rarely captures the chaotic reality of a physical neighborhood.
No, it really doesn't.
Because at that exact same town hall, we get the view from the street. Mike Agius, a resident of Wards 3 and 4, painted a drastically different picture for the local reporting.
Yeah, his perspective was intense.
He stated that his neighborhood streets are littered with ARUs, rooming houses, and single-family homes converted to hold multiple large families.
And he detailed the visible fallout of that.
Exactly. Severe parking problems with driveways entirely paved over, excessive garbage piling up on the curbs, and lingering health and safety concerns in areas heavy with these multi-unit conversions.
It sounds incredibly stressful for the neighbors.
It does. So what does this all mean for the listener? How can a policy be working successfully on paper, ticking all the vital safety boxes, yet completely fail the eye test for the people who are actually trying to live next door?
It's confusing, but both realities are technically existing at the exact same time.
How is that possible?
It's a classic paradox of urban regulation. The city's primary mandate with the RRL is the interior safety of the dwelling.
Okay, the inside of the house.
Right. So a landlord can take a traditional four-bedroom suburban home, carve it up to house 4 distinct families, and submit to a rigorous city inspection.
Right. They upgrade the electrical panel, install the fire doors, put in the egress windows.
Exactly. And in the city's ledger, that property is now 100% compliant. It was officially off the danger list, and it counts as a safety win.
But the people living next door aren't looking at the upgraded electrical panel.
No, they definitely are not.
They're looking at the exterior.
And that is the problem, because the physical infrastructure of a suburban neighborhood has hard limits.
Right.
A compliant, totally fire-safe home holding 4 families is still generating the solid waste of 4 families.
Which means mountains of garbage on the curb.
Exactly. It requires parking for potentially 6 to 8 vehicles on a lot designed for 2.
Yeah, hence the fully paved over driveways.
The municipal sewer lines, the water pressure, the width of the street for emergency vehicle access, even the municipal waste collection schedules. All of that was engineered decades ago based on the mathematical assumption of roughly 3 to 4 people living on that specific plot of land.
Wow. So the house is legally safe from a fire code perspective, but the neighborhood infrastructure is basically buckling under the weight of a density it was never physically designed to handle.
You nailed it. The interior is regulated, but the exterior is overwhelmed.
So when a resident like Mike Agius looks out his window, the safety of the fire doors inside doesn't mitigate the reality of overflowing garbage bins attracting pests outside.
Or the total inability to park safely on his own street.
This disconnect naturally drives the community's deepest frustration. They feel the city is heavily funding a massive, broken bureaucratic machine rather than fixing the visible root of the problem.
Right, which leads to accusations of wasting money.
Exactly. Agius brought a blistering critique to the town hall regarding the finances of the enforcement itself.
What did he say?
He pointed out that the city is giving millions and millions in additional funding to the bylaw department, but the output is painfully slow. He calculated that the city is effectively issuing 1 ticket a day.
1 ticket a day.
Yeah, he called it embarrassing and pointed to deep inefficiencies in the department. Now, as a listener, 1 ticket a day probably sounds like hyperbole.
It does sound like an exaggeration.
But let's verify that math based on the city's own reporting. The city issued 893 penalty notices between January 1st, 2024 and March 31st, 2026.
Good.
That is a window of roughly 820 days. 893 tickets divided by 820 days. Mike Agius is completely accurate. It is essentially 1 ticket a day.
Wow. When you break down the math, he's totally right.
It sounds like the residents feel the city is buying a massive, expensive new engine for a car that has a flat tire, is throwing millions into hiring more officers useless if the actual process of getting compliance is horribly inefficient.
The frustration is completely understandable, really. But mechanically, it's less like a flat tire and more like trying to drain a flooded basement through a standard garden hose.
Okay, I like that analogy. Explain that.
Well, you can buy the biggest, most expensive water pump on the market, which in this case represents the millions of dollars in new bylaw funding.
Right.
But the water still has to travel through that narrow administrative hose. The inefficiency residents see is actually the legal friction of due process.
Ah, the red tape.
Exactly. Bylaw enforcement is not like writing a speeding ticket. An officer cannot simply walk up to a crowded house and slap a fine on the door.
They can't.
No, they have to gather evidence, which often requires securing legal entry to the property.
Which I imagine landlords push back on.
Oh, constantly. And once non-compliance is verified, the city legally must issue a notice of violation and provide the property owner a mandated grace period to fix the issue.
So they get time to correct it before the actual fine hits.
Right. The officer then has to return for a reinspection. If the landlord still refuses to comply, a penalty notice is finally issued. But even then, the landlord has the legal right to appeal that notice to a municipal tribunal.
Oh man, so it gets tied up in court.
Yep. tying the ticket up in a legal backlog for months.
So the bureaucracy is constrained by property rights.
Exactly. The process is legally slow by design to protect against municipal overreach.
It's meant to be slow.
Yeah. And Councillor Keenan defended the timeline by acknowledging these growing pains in the first 2 years of the pilot.
He's asking for patience.
Right. He insisted that with the January 2026 expansions, the enforcement capabilities will scale up and compliance will accelerate.
Do you think that's true?
Well, analytically speaking, taking a targeted pilot program of fewer than 4,000 licenses and instantly expanding it into a citywide initiative flooded with over 13,000 applications will inherently break the administrative pipeline.
It's just too much volume at once.
Exactly. The administrative hose is choking on the volume of the shadow market it just uncovered. The city is pouring millions into expanding the department to essentially brute force their way through that backlog, buying time to process the paperwork.
But the residents, dealing with the daily reality of infrastructure failure, have completely run out of patience.
They have. And it's hard to blame them when there's nowhere to park and garbage is everywhere.
Exactly. What we are seeing through Brampton's deep dive into residential licensing is a masterclass in the immense difficulty of retrofitting traditional low-density neighborhoods for modern multifamily density.
It really is a delicate balancing act.
It's incredibly delicate. The municipality has a moral and legal imperative to enforce life-saving fire and health codes.
They can't ignore the safety risks.
No, they can't. But at the same time, they have to manage massive systemic bureaucratic delays and continuously expand their budgets just to enforce the baseline rules.
All while trying to maintain the basic daily livability of the neighborhood for the residents who feel their streets are fundamentally degrading.
Yeah, the source material lays out thousands of hours of administrative labor, intense community division, and millions of municipal dollars spent.
And all of this machinery is mobilized simply to regulate and manage standard single-family homes that have been quietly, out of necessity, converted into multi-unit dwellings. It's a massive undertaking for a really fundamental human need housing.
Which leaves you, the listener, with one final, deeply provocative thought to explore. We have detailed the monumental effort, the financial cost, and the neighborhood strife Brampton is enduring just to cope with this reality.
Right.
If modern cities have to build such massive, heavily funded policing systems just to manage the underground conversion of single-family homes into multifamily dwellings, does this prove that the traditional architectural concept of the single-family neighborhood is completely obsolete for the reality of how people actually need to live today?
That is a fascinating question to leave them with.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the physical structures of the world around you. Look past the surface of the policies shaping your city. And remember that sometimes the biggest shifts in society are happening quietly right inside the house next door. Catch you next time.